So, hi, I'm Dolly. I am the Florida Electronic Library Administrator here at the Bureau of Library Development and the Division of Library and Information Services. Most of you probably do know me. Um, I am going to facilitate a conversation of AI in libraries. I'm not planning on doing much in the way of presenting at all, although I do have a couple of introductory slides. If you could, can folks let me know how many of you know very little about AI and would like to learn more? Can you like raise your hand or throw in a heart or something like that? So I can see. There's a heart. Okay. All right. Thumbs up. Let's see. Hand raises, few hand raises. Okay. So now, how many of you know lots and lots and lots about AI and are going to help me have a discussion here today? Raise your hand or give me a heart. Okay. And how about the rest of you? Give me hearts if you're in between. Okay, yep, here comes some hearts. Okay, good. So for the folks who are in between and who don't know much, I'm going to do a real quick little overview of what is AI. Um, and I want to say that most of the pictures here are generated by AI. So this particular one is generated by AI using Canva. And I need to get to my slide so I can go forward here. Okay. So what is AI? It's basically machines thinking like people. That's pretty much what it is. And they're programmed, pre-programmed in order to think like humans. And then once they are able to learn on their own, they continue that programming themselves. And the way they do it is there are multiple components. Most AI systems don't have every single one of these components. Types of AI have, one or two of them. When you start getting into the expert systems, you start getting a lot of them in. But mostly what they do is a few of the components work together to make very specific types of AI. So for example, machine learning is the ability for computers to learn on their own as they get new data. And you see this all the time when you hit the likes in your social media, and then more and more of the same sorts of things start showing up. So the AI in your social media is saying, oh, she likes cats. We're going to throw cats at her, or we're going to throw dogs at her, or we're going to throw, hiking stories at her because she keeps liking those things. Natural language processing are helping you to do AI searches. They help you to do translations. AI spell check is starting to become more and more prevalent instead of the old-fashioned algorithm-based spell check. Computer vision is used for the photography and the classification and the object tracking. So, for example, computer vision will be used for facial recognition systems or being able to track an object. So for example, if you've got one of the new fancy mirrorless cameras, it will detect eyes and will track eyes. And so when you are shooting your family members, it will focus in on the eyes. It's very scary, but really cool. Robotics, of course, are the sorts of things that build your cars. They're also the cars. The self-driving cars are also robots. A lot of AI algorithms and machine learning will go together to analyze data and identify patterns, and they're used for things like fraud detection and customer service. And again, when you talk about a lot of these deep learning and expert systems, it's not just one system, it's multiple systems working together. So your facial recognition, your surveillance, your recommender systems that say, hey, you like this kind of book? Here's some other things to use, or here's some other Netflix shows. You like that one? Let's try you on these. So that these are some of the ones that will track what you like and continue to look for other things in similar patterns so they can recommend things for you. Your expert systems are your very high level problem solvers, like the medical diagnosis and your car repair diagnostics. There are a lot of opportunities for libraries, and I'm not going to go into lots of deep here, but obviously circulation, copy cataloging, checking metadata, your image recognition, for tagging, monitoring your supply of the inventory, predicting demand as people are using your circulation, your chatbots, your reference assistants, data analysis, accessibility, speech to text, multiple languages being translated inside your databases, database searches. Marketing is a really great thing for libraries to think about. And that is pretty much where I am in my overview. Very brief. I can go into a little bit deeper if folks have questions, but really I want to get to this question for you all. How do you use AI? What do you find helpful? What would you like to use it for? And this is a discussion. I'm going to put all of you on the spot.
Hey, Dolly, this is George in Lake County.
George.
Hello. You
Hello.
know me, you invite me to a party, I'm going to talk. So
please talk.
I've been using AI as part of my job and personal life for probably close to a year at this point in time, mainly to help me fine tune my writing. I don't consider myself a bad writer, but it's a way of fine tuning or getting a more appropriate tone. Sending an email to staff, and I want to make sure maybe it's a little friendlier than what I wrote. Or
George,
if I'm sending something, go ahead. What?
I was going to say, you're so friendly. You probably need to be less friendly so you can be like more of a boss.
Yeah, the angry Hulk. But if I'm sending something to the county manager,
yeah,
and she doesn't need to read the 3 emails that were sent prior, I have AI summarize the email into several bullet points, and then I can look at that and send that to the county manager so she can make a decision a little more quickly about something. I've used it to fine tune my writing and just about everywhere. And that's the only thing that we've been using it for so far in our library system. Our county is getting ready to create an AI task force for the whole county, which will help show us how put some policies and procedures in place to guide us when we're using this tool. Our director of communications for the county has really jumped into AI. He's doing a great job of investigating it and looking at how governments can use it. And when he did a presentation in front of all the leadership, so we're talking about 300 some odd people for the county, and surprisingly, it looked like about 60 to 70% of the staff at that level was already using AI in some way with their job across the board. So I'm excited to see how we can leverage this as a tool. And when I have conversations with our communications director, we always go back to the fact that AI is like a hammer or something like that. It's a tool that you can use. You still have to proofread it. You still have to look at it. Is it accurate? Is it truthful? But we've been talking about how we can use AI in library services in the future. And there's some basic things like you tapped, like marketing. It can help us create marketing prompts for social media. It can help us with press releases, but you still have to look at these and make sure it fits your tone, it fits, what you're saying or what you want to say. I can even see it for helping us to write book descriptions if we're doing book recommendations or things like that. Just not really taking away our jobs, but making it easier for us to do our jobs. And that's my initial 2 cents.
So what particular AI do you use for your writing?
Okay,
What is the
right.
one that you use for that?
Yeah, right now I'm using ChatGPT 4.0. I pay for it myself personally.
Okay.
I don't have the library pay because I use it for personal stuff as well. Um,
Yeah.
but I also use Microsoft Copilot,
Okay.
and that is probably what we are going to be using, and most governments are going to be using because it comes with Microsoft Office.
Right.
And there are
Right.
differences between the two.
Yes.
Copilot is a little friendlier in its um, presentation, but I generally go back to ChatGPT. I really like ChatGPT style a little bit better than Copilot. Copilot will make funnier images though than ChatGPT, so that's always good. But we just haven't done anything professionally. We're just sort of playing with it and
Right.
seeing what makes
Right.
sense without really pushing anything out there in the open. I've used it for a lot of personal stuff.
Right.
Anybody
Right.
who knows me, I love amusement parks and theme parks, and I've asked ChatGPT, write something for me, and I'm like, oh, that's wrong. That's completely wrong. So you do have to
Right.
know what's going on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I have discovered that. Yeah, I've discovered that. Has anyone else out there besides me and Katrina, because I know she's on this call, has anyone else out there played Stump the AI to see if you can get it to say something wrong or hallucinate? Has anyone else played that game with ChatGPT or one of the others? Okay. Yep. Marion County has. Let's see who's on what. I don't have my name up. Amy Acker. Okay, Amy, you want to
Amy
talk?
Ackerman has a question or comment.
Yeah, do you have are you unmuted? Do you need to be unmuted, Amy?
Okay. Hi. So my question was more for George regarding using a personal account for ChatGPT. I've started using ChatGPT myself as I was trying to rewrite some policy just to make it, sound a little better. I'm not a bad writer, but everybody needs some help. I recently attended the Charleston conference this past, was it October or November in Charleston? And while I was anticipating, a good conference about collection development, it was primarily about AI. And one of the questions that was raised was if we are using ChatGPT on a personal level for work, if we should leave our particular job and if we've been uploading particular information into that particular AI, is that something that is following us when we go to another location? Well, technically everything is public record, but if we're using it for our jobs, they were advising that we should be having paid accounts through our jobs specifically for work because it does retain that information.
yes, I would agree with you that we should. Since we're still in that experimental phase, I haven't been worried about it as much. I probably should be worried about it. I'm starting to use Copilot more for work-related
Right.
stuff since it is attached to my county login. But it will follow me. You're right. I pay for the $20 a month account and used it for different things. Like you said, it's great to upload a document and interpret a policy, or can you rewrite this policy to be a little clearer?
Exactly.
You can use phrases like that. So I'm probably skating on the edge of this. We just haven't broached it yet. Probably once we have an official county task force and an AI policy in place, I probably will go strictly with Copilot, which would be paid for by the county. I'm going to continue to pay for it personally. I find it very useful in my daily
Agreed.
life with
So,
things. Go ahead.
and if I can ask about the task force, who was it that within the county that originated that?
It's our director of communications
Okay.
brought that up, and he saw the future that
Yeah.
we really need to have some stuff in place. This
Yeah.
will be a county-wide task force made up with different people from across the county, so we can integrate this into our jobs and learn how to use it and how we can move forward with it. And it's like county. You work for a county. It sometimes
Mhm.
takes us some time to get stuff doing in between storms and everything else.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but
After
yeah,
I came back from this recent conference, I've been telling everybody I have mild alarm about the future. And I think something like either a library task force or a county task force or something that looks at the privacy implications of some of this is warranted.
Yeah, we haven't jumped into that, but you're right. That would be part of it. I think we're still in that exploratory phase where everybody's like, well, let's just kind of, how do you use it?
Mhm.
What can you use it? At the directors assembly in Tallahassee in early December, sitting at a table with other directors, and we talked a little bit about using AI, and the table was pretty much divided. Half hated it and didn't want it, and the other half was like using it. We had some not breakout sessions, but exercises. And after the first one, I got my phone out and put the prompts into Chat GPT, and everybody got on board very quickly. Like, oh, I can see how this can help us. So as long as the state library doesn't know I did that, we'll be okay.
Oh, yeah. Were you muted just then, George?
What?
You must have just been muted. I didn't hear that.
Okay, gotcha. No, but that is with privacy, with your own account. I mean, I guess it's the same as when the county attorney says never ever log into your personal email on your county computer, because it then becomes,
Public
public
property,
record.
public domain.
And
Yeah.
that's what we have to worry about for now. So
Yeah.
I probably will switch over to using Copilot. I'm just waiting for my county communications director to tell me to do that. So
Thank you.
So thinking about this, reference service assistance is one of the places that is a real opportunity for a library. You've got, chat bots, you can make book recommendations, you can answer questions, you can do like light level sort of FAQ style reference services after the library is closed. How do I get onto Libby? How do I check out a book? How do I renew a book? That kind of thing. What happens when you're using a reference service assistant chatbot and folks are starting to ask real reference questions? Are we looking at some privacy issues here? I didn't mean to make everyone quiet. Please chime in. Now, you can tell me that I'm just wrong. I'm just wrong. Or you can yeah, here we go. Casey Martin.
Hi there.
Yeah, hey.
Hi, yeah, Casey Hudson from Martin County Library System. We actually did develop a chatbot last spring. So it launched in early May, and kind of along with our developer and under the guidance of county administration, asking us to explore opportunities within AI. So the information that we trained our chatbot on was basically our website content. During the pandemic, we invested a lot of time putting a lot of our content on our website. And so it was pretty easy for the chatbot just to say like, okay, this is kind of your data repository. This is your knowledge base. Like anytime somebody asks you a question, this is the information you have to respond. If someone tries to ask something that's outside of the scope of what the chatbot can handle, it redirects them to call the library, and then it says, what library do you want to call? And if it tries to give personal information, it'll kind of, again, redirect. Very friendly, very nice, way nicer than I could do it myself. But it'll say like, oh, you should give us a call at the library for that information. I'm only trained to answer specific types of questions, and for something more detailed or complex, reach out to the library, and here's the phone number.
Is anyone else got experience? Thank you for that, Casey, by the way. Thank you. Anyone else have similar experience with reference services chatbots?
Hey, Casey, this is George. I just, of course, Googled, pulled up your website. You guys call your chatbot Finn?
Yes.
Is there, what's the story behind that?
Well, that was, so it was a really fun process kind of working with our developer. Like we basically built the chatbot from scratch, just looking at other chatbots. Nobody likes a chatbot, right? So I wasn't super excited about this, but yes, the developer did. We went back and forth on whether it should have a name or not, and we ultimately decided to have that Finn would be a good name for it, and that was on the recommendation of the developer. And our Stewart is which is a city in Martin County. Stewart is the sailfish capital of the world. So it's a big fishing community, hence Finn.
Then
And yeah, give it a whirl if you want to.
Yeah, I'll throw some questions at it, see what it does. Well,
Yep,
in Lake
yep.
County, we'll probably have to go with Larry the Lake Bot, I'm assuming. So get that alliteration in there.
anyone else looking at instituting a reference service chatbot at their library for off hours or for the easy web page sorts of questions so that your reference desk can answer the hard ones?
I will say that, I mean, like you nailed it, Dolly, like that 24/7 service, not only
Mhm.
like around the clock, but multilingual. Like we
Mhm.
really felt like it was worth pursuing from an accessibility perspective.
Yeah.
You know, like we just wanted people to be able to access library resources and information around the clock.
I know that's the language translation I think is very key. For example, I know the number of languages that are available to translate into or have grown exponentially. It used to be, French, Spanish, maybe Creole, and now suddenly you've got all of them. You've got so many different languages that you can choose from to translate your information into when you're using the AIs. The Florida Electronic Library has not gone AI yet. Ours is old algorithm translation. And we've gotten more languages for our stuff too, but I think when Dale goes AI, we're gonna see some pretty neat stuff. And also speaking for the Florida Electronic Library, on our side of things, we don't use EBSCO, we use Gale, but I know EBSCO has recently been experimenting with some AI reference services inside their databases. The ability to pull information and to synthesize it easily for the research. I realize we're not EBSCO, we're Gale State, but it's interesting. I also know that they haven't rolled it out yet. It was a beta testing, and they've got a lot more to do before it will really do what they want it to do. But keep your eyes open for that sort of thing. It's really neat.
Amy, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, so two. Has anyone heard if Ask a Librarian is going to be doing anything with chatbots?
So I have an answer for that. Does anyone else? I won't take up people. I mean, if somebody else knows the answer. Oh, there we go. I'm trying to make it so it's more entertaining here. So what they're doing is a slightly different thing. They're not necessarily doing an AI thing at this point in time. What they're doing is they're polling all of the folks who are on Ask a Librarian to send in their most asked questions, so to kind of keep tabs of their most asked questions, and they're building a database of those things. Now, whether the next step is to then feed it into an AI, I don't know, but that I haven't heard that that's the next step. But at this point, they're building a giant FAQ.
Okay. So
Yeah.
my second follow-up was at the conference that I recently attended. EBSCO was there and some other e-content providers. And I thought what was interesting was it seems like the separation between the two different types of chatbots experiences are the ones that will pull only within their own product, like if they are coming up with some sort of generative AI that's based on the content that they already have licenses to. Whereas some of the concern that was coming up from the academic librarians, at least, was if it is pulling material just found on the internet. I remember one of them in particular was saying one of the questions we should be asking is this data ethically sourced, or is it coming from copyrighted materials that we don't typically have access to? They raised a lot of really interesting questions, but I think the difference was, asking the vendors, like, where is the information coming from? And is it something that we technically have access to legally?
That is a really, so I have another slide that I figured I'd bring up only if we kind of wandered down that path. And we obviously can go backwards a little bit, but there are some concerns with AI. As you can see by this picture, that was prompted by the words yoga pose. There's something slightly different about this lady. You may notice. But there are definitely some concerns with AI, and one of them is definitely ethics and lack of transparency. Who is doing the training? What is it they're training them on? Where's the information coming from? Are they grabbing stuff off of the internet? Are they searching through databases that are under copyright and they really shouldn't be doing it? I don't know where the lawsuits are at this point, honestly. The New York Times, the Actors Guild, there's a number of the recording studio guilds. There's a number of folks out there who have sued ChatGPT, who sued some of the other ones because their stuff has been being used without permission, and their stuff is being regurgitated almost word for word on some of these places. Artists, things, photographs, art have been either been showing up almost line stroke by line stroke as AI pictures, or alternatively, somebody's name has been attributed to an AI work, and that work is actually AI, but it's being sold as a person's work. And that person says, I did not make that thing. I'm not getting money from that thing. You need to stop. So we've got some interesting things going on out in the world with people using AI or training AI. And I will get off my soapbox and let other people talk. Oh, there you go. Yes, Ithaca Generative Product Tracker. Amy, you want to tell us about that?
This was just one of the sites that had been mentioned where you can kind of keep track of where the different vendors are, and what they're developing and what they're presently working on for some of the different products.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that the vendors, they are taking that into concern, but these are the vendors that we're accustomed to. These are normal, like, library vendors who think about these sort of things, and not just brand new vendors who might be just seeing what the possibilities are without thinking about, just because it's possible doesn't mean it should be done, that type of stuff. So the more conscientious ones, at least.
Yeah. So I guess the good news is that if we are libraries working with library vendors, we probably have a good conversation with them, and they know what we need, and they'll be thinking about us. But how about some of the other ones that we might be using? I mean, George uses ChatGPT. They're not library vendors. George, do you know where ChatGPT gets their stuff?
Yeah, they scour the web. They just pull stuff. It's right there on that Ithaca Generative AI project tracker that she just sent over. It basically just crawls the web itself. It's an large language model. So it really does that. And they pull other things. They go behind the scenes as well. with this, I've even over the past year seen massive changes to how Chat GPT, excuse me, even presents itself. First couple of times I asked it to write stuff for me on a personal basis, like, whoa, where'd you get this? And I asked it for citations, and it provided citations, which was fairly interesting. I asked it to help me with something on, public library leadership at one point in time, and it said, here, you might like this. And I think it made up a library in the Midwest and what a library director of a small public library had done to reinvigorate and raise the morale of the staff, because I couldn't find any mention or that library system existing anywhere.
So it hallucinated.
Yeah, it was doing an hallucination, so to speak, which really shocked me at first. But basically understanding the data right now is what's important, and what you're giving back. It's a great tool for refining your writing.
Yes.
I love it now, because I'm starting to recognize when I know people are using Chat GPT without modifying it.
Yeah.
Like I can tell, oh, okay, they use this phrase. This is something Chat GPT uses all the time. Doesn't mean they didn't, but still, which is interesting to me. But using library databases or library vendors to come up with stuff will be, I don't even know if they thought about it yet, because it's probably not an economic model that's going to make sense for these chat-based companies or these services as a whole. I don't know. That's a good question, though. Think about that.
And if I can comment really quick on the thing, George, that you mentioned about that Midwest library.
Yeah.
One of the really interesting quotes that I heard recently is that ChatGPT is a people pleaser. It's going to give you it's going to give you what it thinks you want to hear, even if it's not the right answer. I thought that was a really good way of like a checks and balances to think about things when you are pulling different information and yes.
That's good. One of my sons had just told me, did you hear Chat GPT refused to shut itself down? And I was like, come on, guys, this is I just looked it up. And basically, the chatbot did not just attempt to disable its oversight mechanism, but also tried to copy itself and then override its core coding system after believing that it was at the risk of being switched off. And this is from the Declan Herald News, which just shocks me that it knew enough to be like, oh, whoa, they're going to shut me down. I need to fix this. That's kind of scary.
I think I saw that movie. Did you see that? I saw that movie.
Yeah, that was scary.
Didn't end well.
No. I have to play a game of thermonuclear war.
Yes. So I'm seeing a comment in the chat from LeVar. LeVar, do you want to talk about that a little bit, that observation? No? Yes? LeVar?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now. Yes, indeed.
All right. So when I'm speaking about AI, one of the things that I mentioned is its ability to recognize and complete patterns is one of its key capabilities. And in some cases, it's just trying to complete the pattern with the most likely next thing. With that, as George was mentioning, it can cite sources that don't exist. So you really have to check behind it when it's giving you information as well as writing on your behalf. One of the things I stress with the technology is that it's a tool that augments your work. It's not really at the place to be a replacement for human interaction and human understanding, especially as it relates to context.
Have you any interesting hallucinations you've seen that you'd like to share with us?
Did I lose sound?
I can hear you now.
I guess this is George again, he's having some issues there. I was looking at the yoga pose and, you see this a lot with AI. It doesn't understand motion or movement very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you get 6 fingers or you get blurry hands and things like that. It just doesn't quite know the human body like we do.
Also true.
Yeah,
Also
that's part
true.
of it. But yeah.
And again, remember we were talking about the different components. And so your chat GPT component that cites the wrong or incorrect or hallucinates citations that don't exist is a whole different machine learning than the one that is trying to figure out how many legs a person has so that they can replicate a yoga pose. So again, when you're looking at or thinking about the training of AI, who's doing it? What are they using? What are they culling, right? What are they culling out? And how is that information or is everything being used? Okay, LeVar's back. LeVar, can we hear you again?
Yes, I can hear you again.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So you were talking about where the information is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
As George mentioned, Microsoft Copilot is probably going to be the front runner for governments. And,
Okay.
I think working closely with your IT department is going to be really important for the determining which data it has access to as a tool. So data governance is going to be just really, really important. Are we sharing sensitive information? Are we sharing information about our processes that, may be able to be used in unexpected ways or by bad actors? All those types of things are considerations.
Yeah.
And also considerations that should be made if you're using an online or a personal account for ChatGPT that's not tied to your organization. The enterprise level of having such a resource kind of gives you some insulation and leaves that part of it to your IT department to make the tool safer for more people to use.
So I remember a few years back, Microsoft suddenly found, I'm pretty sure, now people who have the IT background remind me of this. A few years back, Microsoft suddenly discovered that they had left a back door open and they'd been hacked. What was that, Golden Eagle or something like that? There was some thing that had happened a few, and I know our IT here at the Department of State found out about it, and they were scrambling to make sure that our information hadn't gotten out to some hackers or whatever out on the web. So how much are we going to be able to depend or rely on our information being safe? Because really another concern with AI is security and whether things are being shared. Whether things can be hacked.
Yeah, I think that's an important consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Really going back to data governance, where things are stored, how they're being used,
Mm-hmm.
and even how your chatbots might, or I say chatbots, not necessarily a chatbot, but your AI tool, how are they using that content? Do they have read and write privileges? Can they create files? And all of those are important for your procurement department and IT to be working on, which is, as George mentioned, we we've been using AI for over a year now on a team level. And we got to a place where, you know, if we're going to start using this, or especially if we're ever going to consider allowing AI to interface with the customer, then we're going to need a policy. One great resource is the Government AI Coalition, which Lake County is a member of, and they have a lot of templates and use cases for you to evaluate, but to also expand that discussion to the rest of the organization, because that's the groundwork that's going to have to be laid for us to move forward, you know, confidently and competently as a government. You know, we can't let our residents down. So it's important that we get it right. So it's more important that we get it right than that we do it fast, as opposed to what you're seeing in the private sector.
Really, really good points. If you could send a link to information about that, I'd love to see that in the chat, LeVar. I don't know if you can throw that in the chat first or not.
Done.
Nice. Nice. I know there's worldwide interest in having ethical growth. I think LeVar's made a really good point about the private sector versus the government sector. I know some concerns that our national security have thought about is when you've got an AI who is doing, for example, code breaking or hacking, and the AI itself is learning how to surpass your systems. There are some interesting things that have been coming out just recently at the federal level about that. Not that that should affect our libraries. I realize that I'm going up to a high level, but we are, all of us, government organizations. And so the fact that a government does need to think about backdoors. We here at the Department of State happen to be on the same servers as the Department of Elections, which I'd hate to think that something that in our library, somebody can get in and sneak through some back door and get over to elections because it's the same servers. It's one reason why we don't have webinars on election day. So,
I have a question for the group. Has anyone done any programs surrounding AI to inform your patrons, or done anything fun with AI? Casey?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, we've tried a couple things. We have 2 classes we're doing now that are going over really well within the community, and people are really hungry for this type of information. So we have one class called Artificial Intelligence 101 that we kind of give the history of AI, you know, what big data is, machine learning, kind of how it's been building over the years, and then defining generative AI, you know, both text-based, like we've been talking about, and image-based generative AI. So people walk out really like empowered and excited to use it. Or at least try it, and other people are still a little bit cautious. And so noticing that kind of caution and hesitation, we want to encourage that that hesitancy, not hesitancy, we want to encourage that skepticism, that healthy skepticism.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
so then we also developed another class. It's a bit more casual, like open lab style, but in our computer lab, we kind of have a facilitated hands-on, like, let's try ChatGPT, let's try Bard or Gemini. Let's try DALI. You know, we kind of have prompts for people to try just to give them an idea about where to start. And we can also use that to kind of, you know, like somebody had said earlier, ask it something you know about and critique its response. So we'd also get that like AI literacy in that hands-on class too. And both classes have been really well received by the community.
That's pretty cool. Dolly, I didn't know you had a chat.
Yes, I think it's an art program though, right? Isn't it? It's an art program.
Awesome.
Yes, sorry, DALI.
Yeah, as in Salvador.
I know. I was.
Yes.
Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. And I want to hear more about Amy Stoltz's banking vice president.
Hello. Every year, one of our local vice presidents, he's a VP of commercial banking, comes and he does some kind of program for me. And this year, I wanted him to do it on senior citizens, what they need to look out for not to get scammed. And he talked a lot about romance scams, but then they were very interested in AI. So he was explaining all the different ways that AI has been ripping people off at the bank. They're seeing a lot of check fraud. He said that commercial banking is seeing a huge increase in check fraud because AI is creating false checks. And they're fighting back by using AI to scan every check. And they're also instituting other systems to try to force people to keep better track of their checks, what have you, for the bank, for the commercial banking. That was the main thing. He also talked about how they have had several cases, and this is a small town. They've had several cases of AI generated voices. People have sounded like a grandchild, or there was one that was a wife. It wasn't necessarily a person, but it sounded like them. They had faked their voice. They're in trouble, they need help, and they wanted a wire transfer like right now.
Oh my goodness, that's horrible.
He said it's astronomically increased. And like I said, this is a small community bank. We're a small town, and it was all local examples that he was using.
Oh my
So,
golly.
it's very interesting. It was a very interesting talk.
I'm hearing some great ideas for library programming in the future across the public libraries here in Florida. Yeah.
Hey, Dolly, this is George again.
Hi, George.
Amy and I, Amy's one of the directors of my system, and we had a conversation in one of our meetings that she brought up, and we realized several staff members at different locations were receiving phone calls, and people were asking them to either look up specific odd phrases and repeat things, or say things over and over. And I think it was Amy who brought up that the bank person had said they're trying to record your voice to get very specific phrases in order to emulate you or something like that. I know I was talking with Jim Walter at TBLC, and he's like, yeah, somebody tried to get him to say his name over AI to get him to approve a transfer out of their corporate account or something weird like that. So again, and we've just told staff, if it gets weird, just hang up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard the ones where the phone call comes in and they say, who am I talking to? And you're like, don't tell them your name, because as soon as you tell them your name, they're recording that. So you want to say, well, this is 444-392 or whatever. You don't want to say your name. You certainly don't want to say George Taylor. Because yeah. Scary times. Scary times. So I see Heather has asked a question about, are there any plans to create policy or procedures surrounding AI in library spaces, or even statewide best practices for public libraries? That is a great idea. I think Amy Johnson will be interested in having that conversation. I don't think that we can create a policy here, but I think LeVar's link that he stuck in the chat that just above, I don't know if you can see it. I can copy it, I think, and put it further down. But LeVar was talking about some AI reviews for governments. LeVar, do you want to talk a little bit more about this in the last couple of minutes of this? Because I think that might be very helpful for all of us who are in governments of different types. Yes, thank you, Lindsay. Perfect.
Yeah, so the Government AI Coalition consists of a group of people really technology forward. It started out in San Jose, and they've got several templates and also use cases to kind of pull from and look at some opportunities to incorporate AI in your own organizations. There are some things dedicated to human resources, others dedicated to certain functions. I do believe that there's a working group for librarians. So they're really on the cutting edge of what's going on with AI, and it's been a tremendous resource for us as we're trying to move forward. So if your organization isn't already plugged in, I would highly recommend it. And beyond that, the templates are like a great place to start off from for your organization as you work through some of the other things. And
Thank
one
you.
thing I'll mention as well is some of what you do with AI is really going to depend on the maturity of your organization or even your individual team. Training is an important part of getting your organization to that level of maturity to do some more advanced use cases with AI. But I think the low-hanging fruit is always good as well. Like you mentioned, databases, if there's a way to tie into some of that, maybe with your chatbots or other resources. Another good thing to look at maybe just those things that are public record, like, you'd have access to this information anyway. Those are good places to start where you don't have to have such a level of maturity to move forward. Even for our organization, we're not moving as quickly as I would like us to, but we are moving at the right speed for where we are as an org. So that's just something to keep in mind. You don't have to figure it all out today.
Good point. Good point. So we've got about 6 minutes left. Are there any other thoughts, ideas? I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. You've seen this enough. You're probably tired of that. Are there any other thoughts, comments, ideas, last minute things in the chat? I think this is a great discussion. I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the beginning, really.
Hey, Dolly, this is George again. Again, you invite me, I'm going to talk. I was trying to find the link in our catalog. One of our commissioners is a member, as most of them are, with the National Association of City and Counties, something like that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And like the executive vice president or somebody published an AI generated book, like what is government sort of thing. And I was trying to find it because he's like, I want one of these in each of the libraries. At least they were free from the organization. But it was one of those things that's like, oh gosh, this goes against, if it wasn't a county commissioner asking for this, we wouldn't have added this book to the system type of thing. And
yeah.
I didn't think about this, but that needs to be part of our collection development policy. Like, do we only accept books written by humans or dogs? Because everybody loves a good book written by a dog. But that was something that was new to us. And it was a 32 page, 5th, 6th grade level book full of illustrations that were AI generated. The text was AI generated and the quality was okay. Like I said, we wouldn't have added it otherwise if it hadn't been a request. I can't find it. I don't remember what it was called. I should have, as much as I had to deal with it. But again, something else we need to think about policy-wise as well. So Let's see if I can find it.
So Renee threw something in the chat that says, like most tools, the AI tools work best when you use them for what they are good at and don't expect more than what they can currently provide. And that is a great point. That is a great point. I think one of the things that I think of when I think of libraries and AI is that libraries need to keep on knowing what AI is out there and doing the trainings, helping people who are trying to navigate the world of AI and make it more easy for them. Let's see. This says The Marvelous Adventures of County Land. I see. Is that your book, George?
Yep, that's it. I just found it. Yeah, the marvelous adventures of County Land, Stronger County, Stronger America, prompted and created by Matthew D. Chase, CEO, Executive Director, using OpenAI ChatGPT 4.0. So we have that in our catalog record.
Oh dear.
That it was generated by them, and it is part of a NACO publication. Interesting. I got 16 copies, and only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 have added it so far, which is okay. Oh, this is interesting. And they're allowed to self-designate. Some have put it as a nonfiction. Some have put it in as a picture book. Interesting.
Well then.
There you go. There you go.
All right. So we are at 3:59. Vanessa, would you like to carry us home?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for participating in this discussion. It was lively. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure that everyone was able to take away some information that they can implement in their libraries, especially in regards to the pros and cons and policies and programs that they can conduct in their library. So I appreciate everyone coming. Next month, we are discussing legislative research and tracking tools. We have one of our archivists who are going to share some information on that. That will be on February 17th. So be looking in your Building Success newsletters coming straight to your inbox. And with that, we have our BLD post-webinar survey. Please share your information as to how this discussion went for you. We love to hear your feedback so we can do some improvements and put together some discussions or topics that mean something to you. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a happy new year.